Hello my dear friends, you're in the Military Summary channel, and today we will discuss the situation in Ukraine on the 6th of December of 2025. Today we have lots of very interesting updates, so let's start. And first we're going to talk about another massive missile and drone strike that took place during the previous 24 hours. Before we start, I would like to point to attention that today Ukraine celebrates the Day of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. So most likely this massive missile and drone attack was something like a specific way from the Russian side to congratulate Ukrainians with this holiday. So if you remember, during the previous video we haven't managed to discuss this map because this map was published somewhere at noon time, and the reason of this is not that the map was very complicated and that the Russians used dozens of missiles and hundreds of drones. The thing is that the Russians were attacking Ukraine through a very long period of time. So the Russians began their attacks yesterday in the evening on the 5th of December of 2025, and the Russians finished attacking Ukraine somewhere at 3 or 4 p.m. of the Ukrainian time. So basically the map was published before the Russians even finished to bomb and attack the territory of Ukraine. And this is the most important thing. Furthermore, there was a moment during this massive attack when everybody thought that the Russians ended, but 5, 10, 15 or 30 minutes after, the pro-Ukrainian sources began publishing information that the Russians launched another wave of missiles and drones through the territory of Ukraine. So this is the map that was published today somewhere at 12 p.m. And as you can see, during the previous 24 hours, the Russians used once again hundreds of drones and dozens of missiles. The Russians used cruise missiles, ballistic missiles, hypersonic missiles, Caliber missiles. The Russians were attacking the central part of Ukraine, mainly the Kiev region. The Russians attacked the cities of Chernigov, Odessa, Dnipro, the city of Kryvyi Rog, the western part of Ukraine. So that was indeed attack through the entire territory of Ukraine. Probably the only city that wasn't attacked by Russia was the city of Kharkiv, which is also a specific situation. So let's discuss everything in details. Once again, the Russians were attacking Ukraine for several hours in a row. That was probably not the biggest attack when talking drones and missiles, but that was the longest attack when talking about time that the Russians needed for this. So during the day, the Minister of Defense of Ukraine published this article where we can see the approximate number of missiles and drones that were used by Russia. And this is another important thing, that this article was published somewhere at 10 a.m. of Ukrainian time. So we can have even this, let's say, note in the top left corner. So this is the article, this is the diagram for the 6th of December of 2025, and the Ukrainians are saying they are giving us these numbers by the 10 a.m. of the Ukrainian time, so much before the Russians finished their attacks. So the Ukrainians are saying that by 10 a.m. they managed to count up to 704 drones and missiles altogether, and the Ukrainians managed to bring down just 615 air vehicles. But the thing is that the Russians continued to attack Ukraine, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the Russians finished once again somewhere around 3 or even 4 p.m. of Ukrainian time, and between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. it seems that Russians used another 100 of missiles and drones together. So that was probably indeed the most powerful attack. But once again, the Russians have several tasks. One of them was to attack objects of critical infrastructure of Ukraine, and today we got lots of reports that the Russians were destroying power plants, or at least the Russians were damaging them. And the Russians once again were trying to congratulate Ukrainians using this specific way with their Day of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. So this is the situation. Now let's discuss videos that we got through the day. Before we start with videos, few important articles published by the Minister of Energy of Ukraine. A massive strike hit electricity generation, distribution and transmission facilities, according to the Ministry of Energy of Ukraine. There is damage in the Kiev, Chernigov, Lvov, Odessa, Zaporozhye, Dnipropetrovsk, Nikolaev and Kharkiv regions, the ministry reports. Later we got additional report that Ukrenergo reports power outages in several regions. And the most important is that according to the latest report from the Minister of Energy, there were now no calendars or schedules for Ukrainians. So the Minister of Energy stated that they don't know for sure when exactly they would be able to stabilize the situation, and only when they stabilize the situation they would be able to provide these schedules for the population of Ukraine. So that was indeed one of the most powerful strikes through the territory of Ukraine. Furthermore, now let's discuss videos. Let's talk about Kiev. As for the city of Kiev, during the previous 24 hours, the main number of videos we received from the most northern part, from the settlement by the name of Vishnograd. So in this video, we can see how a civilian was making a video where the smoke, probably the Russians attacked some railway station or maybe some facilities. So this is the video. Later, the Western sources managed to geolocate the fire anomaly, and according to information we have, the fire anomaly occurred right exactly in this area. As you can see, there are some buildings, some warehouses. Maybe the Russians attacked these facilities where Ukrainians were storing drones or missiles. Very difficult to understand. Furthermore, according to information we have, the Russians attacked the settlement of Fastov. This city was damaged by the Russian fire, and probably the biggest damage was recorded exactly from this area. And the first photo that was published this morning was this photo, where we can compare the situation before and after the Russian strike. So Fastov railway station in the Kiev region was completely destroyed, as you can see. So, but this is not a military infrastructural object. This is, as you can see, there are hundreds of civilians. This is just a railway station where Ukrainians were waiting for a train to move further in the direction of Kiev or further in the western direction. Maybe the Ukrainians were redeploying infantry or troops during this period of time. Who knows? Later, we received additional videos. So this video was made right exactly, probably a few hours later, the Russians attacked. As you can see, the railway station was completely destroyed. We can see probably servicemen of different services, rescue services that were trying to stabilize the situation. And even by when this video was published somewhere at 1 p.m., it was still unknown what exactly the Russians were trying to destroy with that attack. And probably somewhere at 3 p.m. we received this video, and only when this video was published it became clear what exactly the Russians were trying to destroy. As you can see, according to the first seconds of this video, the Russians destroyed trains, electro trains that Ukrainians were using for redeploying not just of troops and soldiers, but of course in civilians. So as we can see, the Russians they're now attack not just military objects, not just facilities, production plants, not just energy facilities. The Russians during that attack were also focused to destroy logistics, with the purpose not to allow the Ukrainians to redeploy troops, soldiers, forces from the western part of Ukraine in the eastern direction. Furthermore, the Russians attacked the city of Odessa. We haven't received anything from this area. The Russians also attacked the city of Kherson. We have discussed this video already. As for this video, this attack was carried out not as a part of the Russian massive missile and drone strike. This attack was carried out just by the regular forces of the armed forces of the Russian Federation in this direction. And according to this video, the Russians attacked the Kherson power plant. So this is the Kherson power plant that was damaged by the Russians, but with artillery strikes, most likely with the use of multiple launch rocket systems. Furthermore, the Russians attacked the Dnipro region. As for the Dnipro region, the Russians were attacking electricity facilities. The sources are saying that the Zelenodolsk, that the Krivoy Rog power plant was damaged or even destroyed. We have lots of videos and pictures from this area. Furthermore, the Russians attacked the city of Dnipro. As for the city of Dnipro, the Russians were attacking this territory. So first we got this probably video published by some Ukrainian source, unknown Ukrainian source. Here we can see just the fire, and from this video it was very difficult to understand where exactly this fire occurred. it was impossible to understand. We just can see and can make a conclusion that something big and something important was destroyed, because the Ukrainians were using even helicopters to stabilize the situation. But later we received this video, this photo, and here we can see what kind of building, what exact building was damaged and attacked by Russians. So as you can see, this is a very huge building, probably something like, we can see using this map that there is a post office. So it wasn't just a, let's say, facility, it was a post office, and the post office was destroyed by the armed force of the Russian Federation on the territory of Dnipro. Very big and strategical post office, most likely that Ukrainians were using also for military purposes. As for the western part of Ukraine, as you can see according to this map, lots of strikes took place there, lots of explosions, lots of drones flew to the western part, but as you can see, as for the western part of Ukraine, we haven't received anything during the previous 24 hours. Most likely Russians attacked secret objects, or the drones that were sent in that direction were brought down by the air defense of the armed forces of Ukraine. So once again, that was the longest attack, and I would like to point to attention that currently there are talks on the territory of the United States of America between Ukrainian and the American delegation, and now they're trying to build a bridge to shorten the gap between position of Ukraine and the Russian Federation regarding the territorial concessions. Most likely the process goes well, because today the President of the United States of America stated that we've got 9th coming up when talking about conflicts that he managed to settle. So maybe something good is waiting for us in coming future. But as of now, we see, according to this massive strike, that the peace is very far from the reality. Furthermore, Ukraine attacked the territory of Russian Federation as well. So during the previous 48 hours, the Ukrainians attacked the city of Grozny, and some buildings in the central part of the city were damaged and destroyed. So let's wait and see what is going to be next, what is going to happen during the next 24 hours, whether the Ukrainians are going to strike back or not. But as of the 6th of December of 2025, Ukraine has huge problems. Another corruption scandal was revealed. Ukrainian deputy Skorokhod, along with her assistant and another accomplice, have been charged with organizing an organized crime group and extorting $250,000, according to the National Anti-Corruption Bureau. It was reported that she belonged to the Zelensky party, so maybe she will give additional details about the Zelensky inner circle and about some interesting things that happened during the special military operation. So we'll wait and see, but obviously the next days more corruption scandals will be revealed and published. Now let's discuss the situation on the ground. And as for during the previous 24 hours, telling the truth, we haven't received lots of updates, and most of them were covered during the previous video. But once again, let's take a look at the most important directions. And the most important direction, of course, is the city of Gulyaypole, where the Russians continue their offensive operation. Today, several pro-Russian sources stated that as a result of clashes, the Russians managed to capture 2 streets in the northern and the eastern parts of the city. The Russians captured the street of Dachny, and the Russians captured the Naberezhnaya street. So according to several pro-Russian very reliable sources, this red line is the current line of combat contact when talking about the city of Gulyaypole, when talking about its northern and the northeastern parts. So this area is already under complete Russian control. Several pro-Russian sources stated that fields and fortifications to the north of the city were also captured, and the most important is that Russians managed to cut R85 road to the north of the city. As for the previous 24 hours, we haven't received anything regarding additional counterattacks of the armed forces of Ukraine in the area of R85 road, which means that Ukrainians don't have enough of forces to carry out anything. At the same time, the Russians are trying to reduce Ukrainian possibilities to the north of the line of combat contact. Today, the Russians published this video where we can see probably a bridge. This is the bridge through the river of Gulyaypole. The Russians discovered that the bridge was mined with Ukrainians, and the Russians destroyed the the bridge. So the Russians destroyed the bridge, which means that the Russians are not going to use the bridge in coming days, which means that for them it's better right now to destroy the bridge and not allow the Ukrainian side to use this bridge for their logistical purposes or for counteroffensive, which means that most likely the Russians expect that in coming days the Ukrainians would try to use this foothold to counterattack Russians in the area of Vidradne, Danilovka, Nechaevka, with the purpose to slow down the Russian offensive in the area of Gulyaypole. So which means that something big is going to happen here. Now let's move and let's talk about the city of Pokrovsk. The situation is difficult, as you can see, and we have adjusted the map by removing the territory, the yellow color, from the city of Mirnograd. Despite the fact that there are still Ukrainian soldiers and troops on the territory of Mirnograd, we can't say that the city is under control of the armed forces of Ukraine. This is something that Ukrainians cannot change. They cannot teleport from the city of Mirnograd to the city of Grishna. They are there, but it doesn't mean that the city is under their control. It's just a matter of time when the Russians will secure the city and will force the Ukrainians either to surrender or they will stay there forever. So during the previous 24 hours, small changes were recorded in the most southern part. Ukrainians control, or the Ukrainians are present at the central part, but we believe that in 2 weeks, and obviously before the end of the year, the city of Mirnograd would be taken by the Russians without any chances for the armed forces of Ukraine to change the situation. Several Western media published lots of interesting articles on this matter. The Telegraph stated that the liberation or control over the city of Krasnoyarsk has transformed the Ukraine conflict. Now it's completely different conflict. Ukraine lose their cities, big cities and towns in Donbas region, and now there is a very huge gap between the nearest cities and the current front line, probably filled with a significant number of no-name villages that Russians would be able to capture without huge resistance and without huge problems from the Ukrainian side. So the last stronghold, almost the last stronghold, was taken by Russia, and the battles and clashes are moving further deep inside of the Dnipropetrovsk and Donetsk regions. The Russians have already begun their offensive operation in this area. As of now, the Russians are focused and concentrated to establish control over the railways between the villages of Dorozhny and Rodinska. So when Russians finish doing this, we are talking about this line first of all. When Russians finish doing this, they will begin offensive towards Belitska. And if Russians can capture the settlement of Belitska, and if Ukrainians lose control over the settlement, this is going to be the beginning of the Donbas or Donetsk disaster for the armed forces of Ukraine. As for the city of Konstantinovka, nothing special. As for the city of Siversk, the most important updates came today from the eastern part. Today, pro-Ukrainian sources reported that Russians managed to establish complete control over the eastern part of the city. Yesterday, we got changes on the most eastern part. That update was also published by pro-Ukrainian sources. Now we have this report, so we see that the Russians began most likely their major offensive operation, at least in the eastern part of the city of Siversk. The Russians most likely will be able to capture the city within the next 20 days, and it seems that the city of Siversk is going to fall within 2025. As for the Liman direction, nothing special. As for the Kharkiv direction, the Ukrainians continue their counter-offensive operation in the city of Kupiansk. The Ukrainians managed to improve their positions in the area of the Yuvileyny micro-district. This is the most important micro-district, and this is currently the Russian stronghold. So if Ukrainians are able to restore control over the Yuvileyny micro-district, then maybe they have chances to make some headache for the Russians on the western bank of the city of the river Oskol. Without the micro-district of Yuvileyny, Ukrainians have no chances to have strong positions in this area. So that is why we expect very heavy clashes for this territory in coming hours and even coming days. And that's it for today. Military Summary channel reminds to condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.